A couple more questions I want to throw at you. The first one is kind of along the same lines of what we were talking about nutritional habits that you have for women who are like recovering or trying to restore hormone imbalance. Other than like potentially just eating more, I feel like that's kind of the blanket common recommendation. What other some maybe nutritional tips for restoring hormonal balance?
Great question. So, definitely the eating enough, I would say alongside that is blood sugar regulation. So blood sugar regulation is another kind of don't pass go situation. If blood sugar is wonky and imbalanced, that's going to disrupt our other hormones, our thyroid hormones, our sex hormones. So focusing on that blood sugar stability, and that's where we get a little bit more focused on, obviously lifestyle factors impact blood sugar too, but from a nutritional kind of standpoint, that's where we think about, okay, meal timing, basic meal composition, and really supporting optimal blood sugar that way. Other things I would think about, nutritionally for, restoring hormone balance would be actual like quality of food that we're eating. We can meet our calorie and macro needs through eating a bunch of like protein bars and fake food. And it's not that there's no place for those things or, convenience items, but in terms of actually supporting hormonal balance, in terms of the synthesis or production of hormones and the metabolism or breakdown of these things, we want to think about all the synergistic benefits that like real food has. So eating, real food proteins, eating, deep nutrition carbohydrates in terms of, our starchy vegetables, our fruit, our legumes, our whole grains, our whole food fats. So really thinking about that nutrient composition in terms of what we're taking in with those calories as well.
Yeah. Along the lines of hormonal balancing tips, if you will, we just talked about some of the nutritional things. I'm a proponent of do everything in your control before trying to go to, external things to solve your problem. So like, for example, if your goal is to lose weight, don't take a supplement before you stop eating fast food. Like if you're eating fast food every single day, don't go to and get supplements and expect those to solve your problem. So like, what are kind of maybe hormonal balancing foundational habits? So for example, it's like if you're sleeping 5 hours every single night, then don't expect necessarily your hormones to be perfect. If you're drinking a few glasses of wine every single night, don't expect everything to be perfect. What are some like foundational hormonal balancing habits that you want to see like laid down, if you will, before you start like seeking other kind of help?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And we always refer to this in practice, what you're describing as, women. And I will say, I get it because we live in a world where there's all these shiny things kind of marketed to us every day. But we always tell clients it's kind of, if you're skipping over the foundations, you're stepping over $100 bills to pick up pennies, right? That saying. And the foundations always come first. So when it comes to, hormonal balance in particular, I mentioned the blood sugar regulation and, nutrient quality and eating enough. I think those are some really core things from a nutrition perspective. Outside of that, I would say sleep and circadian rhythms are huge. So, sleep in terms of sleep timing, when we're going to bed, when we're waking up, sleep duration, sleep quality, these things are massive. Sleep is, the cornerstone of health. And if we are not sleeping, and this comes from a place of having a 10-week-old baby. So I want to acknowledge and recognize that there are external factors that may, impact this, and that's okay. We got to work with what, is going on in our life right now. But sleep is huge. When sleep is disrupted, our stress hormones go up, our insulin sensitivity decreases. So it's going to have this, big ripple effect on hormones. When I say circadian rhythms essentially run the show in the body. So circadian rhythms are, this roughly 24-hour cycle that all internal biological processes operate on, including, hormone production and kind of secretion. So one of the biggest regulators of our circadian rhythms and therefore our hormones is light exposure, light and dark exposure. And I think this is a huge one for people in our modern world where, ideally in the morning, we're going to get some exposure to natural sunlight. We'll absorb that into our eyes. It's going to stimulate the production of all sorts of, important hormones, support thyroid hormone conversion. Ideally at night in the evening, we are going to be exposed to very little artificial light, which is sort of the opposite of what's happening in our modern world. So a lot of us wake up, we're not getting outside, we're immediately on our phones, the TV's on, we're, in our computer, we're on screens all day. And then at night, we're exposed to all sorts of, artificial blue light that is essentially confusing the brain and disrupting circadian rhythms. There was a really interesting study done. It's a little older. I think it was like 2012 or 2014 that basically took a group of individuals that had, were in good health, had healthy, metabolic parameters in terms of, blood sugar and, insulin, and basically took this group of individuals and disrupted their circadian rhythms for 3 weeks by keeping them up later and exposing them to artificial blue light at night. At the end of this 3-week study, at the end of this 3-week study, these individuals had pre-diabetic fasting insulin levels, fasting glucose levels, and they experienced over an 8% decrease in their metabolic rate, in their metabolism in 3 weeks. With adjusting those habits, the bedtime, the exposure to blue light at night, things normalized also within a matter of weeks. So just to show you how powerful, kind of light regulation is. So I would say, focusing on circadian rhythms is really foundational. And, if there's a way that in the morning we can get a little natural light exposure and we can delay using screens for even 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that's going to be super supportive. At night, in the evening, can we, be off screens 30 to 60 minutes before bed? Or if we have to be on screens, can we throw on a pair of, amber blue light blockers to kind of filter out some of that blue light? Doesn't have to be perfect, but if we can, consider screen use, artificial light, try to get some of that natural light exposure, that has a really profound impact on hormones.
Nice.
Circadian rhythms, sleep, blood sugar regulation, and kind of the nutrition pieces. And then the one other kind of foundation I would mention, or two other foundations I would mention rather, would be like NEAT movement, just basic breaking up sedentary time, not even considering the benefits of more structured workouts, but just, breaking up sedentary time, standing, walking around, and then also stress, nervous system support, which is a huge, huge thing, obviously, for all of us. But again, thinking about sort of simple strategies, is there a way we can pause during the workday and do a little bit of deep belly breathing, or, get out for a short walk and, listen to some music that, brings us joy? Creating little pockets for the nervous system to get into that more relaxed state can also have a really positive impact, and, I feel would be a foundation.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and so many of those things kind of can work together, right? Like if you're regulating your blood sugar, if you're getting light exposure, if you're decreasing your stress and breaking up sedentary time, like that's going to help. All those will help each other simultaneously. So like all that stuff is great.